Welcome to New Stripe City, a YouTube channel for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie. I'm joined by a special guest today, the KC Report. My man, Michael. Is it DRC or is it Darcy?
It's Darcy. I get DRC all the time though, so it's all good.
Nah, all good, brother. Appreciate you taking some time out to come through the channel. Please let everyone know where they can find your stuff before we get started.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube. I'm one of the bigger Chiefs YouTube channels. It's just KC Sports Report. You can find me on Twitter. That's at KC Sports Report as well. And then Instagram's KC_Sports Report.
Yeah, so make sure you guys definitely check him out. Subscribe to his channel. I was searching for Chiefs guy. This was the guy that came up, and he seemed pretty knowledgeable. And watched some of his videos. Truly enjoyed some of his takes. The first thing that I asked, I didn't ask you before the show, but might as well segue into this. How did you get into YouTube?
I kind of wanted to start a platform. I'm still fairly young. I just turned 19 a couple days ago, so I was just trying to find some way to kind of get into the field. And I saw other people doing it. I was like, I can do it better than they can. So I just started doing that. And I've been doing it for like 3 years now. So I've got to cover 2 Super Bowls, which is awesome. But that also has like added pressure with it. But it's fun, and it's something that I hopefully will use in my future.
No, that's facts. That's facts. So one of the main reasons that I brought you on, a lot of Bengals fans are probably wondering, the Bengals just had a visit, or they have a visit planned for tomorrow. It's Sunday as we're recording this, but on Monday, they have a visit planned with one of your old friends, Austin Reiter.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to get an actual insight from the fans themselves, besides just looking at, some of the mediums that we have out there with stats and analysis, because they give their scores. But from your opinion, as a Chiefs fan, as someone who's actually known this guy, watched this guy for a while, what is your opinion on him just as a player?
Austin Reiter's a guy that I think can come off the bench and play fairly well. He's a center. He played a lot of snaps at center. But I would almost say, and I heard somebody else say this, and it summed it up perfectly. Patrick Mahomes made Austin Reiter better than he actually was, because he's a mobile quarterback. He's going to be moving around. I think Austin Reiter actually didn't give up any sacks, but that's because Pat was moving around so much. So it's just kind of like he's solid and reliable, and we didn't have too many mess ups at the center position and hiking the ball. But he's not a guy that's going to really blow you away with his run blocking. His pass pro's all right, but like I said, it's hard to kind of know what we have when Austin Reiter was blocking for a guy that's constantly moving around. So I think he's a good guy for depth. Who's your starting center right now?
So usually our starting center is a guy named Trey Hopkins that really kind of came as an undrafted free agent and really took over and was pretty solid. I'd probably say he's a solid player for the Bengals, but he ended up getting a knee injury late in the season last year. It seemed from his agent that he was going to be ready to start the beginning of the season, but it seems that with them having Reiter in, that's a possibility that he may not start the season. Yeah. That's what people are saying. I'm not sure. We're actually going to interview Pro Football Doc here soon to get the real scoop on that. But generally before that, it's Trey Hopkins, and then after that, it's Billy Price, who's a guy that most believe just hasn't lived up to the billing of the first round pick. He ended up losing that starting spot to Trey Hopkins. So that's where we're kind of at now. So, Pro Football Focus, I think, considers Trey Hopkins in either the top half of the NFL or the bottom half, somewhere in between there. He might be like anywhere in the 17th to 20th range in terms of starting centers is kind of where he's at.
Yeah. Well, I would say that Reiter's a upgrade potentially. I think that he's not going to give you any problems. He's very consistent. I believe he played all 16 games last year. So he's a guy that's going to give you minutes. He's not going to get hurt. So I do think that's one thing that he has going for him. His best ability, or a bit of his best ability, is availability, and that's something that he does well. But don't expect to get like a Rodney Hudson or anybody like that. I mean, he's solid for what he does, but you kind of saw the Chiefs go out there and get Austin Blythe and draft Creed Humphrey because it's just like we did not want to pay him what he kind of wanted, and I think that. Right. Hopefully the Bengals get him on a cheaper deal, but I think that he doesn't really understand what the market is right now.
Gotcha. So it seems like it was a deal where it's like we're not paying him, crazy money for center. Like you're okay, but we're not going to throw the bag at you, is what you're saying.
Yeah, okay, and he thinks that he could have got it, obviously. But
well, I mean, the market has shown him that it hasn't. Like,
yeah,
now I do know that there's a knee injury kind of floating around with him. Is that something that he sustained last season with the Chiefs, or from what I hear, I have some sources that are saying that they just want to make sure that his knee is okay on this physical. It doesn't seem to you. I'm looking at your expression. It doesn't seem like he's
I
had
think that
really
was
any
in
injury.
19. It had to
Okay.
be. I don't remember that being last year.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he missed some time, but Austin, I mean, I think he played at all 16 games last year because I don't remember him not being there.
Gotcha.
But I will say we had another center, an older dude. I cannot remember his name, but we brought him in, and he ended up basically splitting time with Reiter, and then eventually he kind of faded away. I can't remember his name right now. It'll come to me later, but he was just better in the run blocking, which is something that Austin Reiter is really not that good at. So.
Gotcha.
I think that for what the Bengals are trying to do, and that's just protect Joe Burrow, he's a solid option, and I don't think he's going to be that much money.
Gotcha. No, that's perfect. This is why we get insight from great YouTubers like Michael here to be able to give us that inside information. Because I kind of felt exactly what you said. I'm like, all right, he's just a solid guy. He's not someone that's going to just be this superstar center that we're signing, and that's truly all the Bengals really need is just depth on that line, solid guys that can come in and start. Obviously, he's had a pedigree of starting for a Super Bowl winning team. So shifting to the Super Bowl, obviously there was, a lot of pressure on Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and you guys kind of went out and were really aggressive in the offseason. One of the guys that the Bengals fans wanted, was Joe Thuney. Can you just talk about like some of those signings and what that means for you as a Chiefs fan that they're kind of remaking this offensive line?
It's kind of crazy because coming into the offseason, we had I think we were $20 million over the cap. And I'm like, they're not going to sign any big name free agents or something like that. The Joe Thuney one was a very big surprise because I was like, oh, he's one of the best left guards in the league that you just were able to scoop up being in the cap situation that you're in. But the move that kind of just blew my mind was the Orlando Brown trade. I do not understand how that worked out, to be quite honest with you. Trading a guy that has Pro Bowl and All-Pro talent to your AFC counterpart rival doesn't make a lot of sense. But the fact that we were able to get him, it just kind of speaks to how Brett Veach is very aggressive and he's had a proactive approach. And I think that, I think we're talking about this off air. It's just like you got to protect your quarterback. And he understands this. And I think that from what I saw, I mean, my biggest thing with the Bengals, I wish they would have took Penny Sewell in the draft. I can't really get mad at Jamar Chase, though, because Jamar Chase is Jamar Chase. Right. But, I mean, you can't really go wrong with either of them. But I think that if you guys just give Joe Burrow that offensive line, because I watched a lot of Bengals games last year, and it just looked like the dude had no chance behind the line. And it just he's so talented, just give him that time, and he's going to have a chance to be special.
I'm glad that you're saying this because I actually do another channel that's AFC North Talk where it's me, a Bengals guy, there's a Ravens guy, there's a Steelers guy, there's a Browns guy, and they all think that I'm a homer saying that Joe Burrow is could be even better than he was last year, which was given what he had, like you said, with the offensive line, no preseason, you had the COVID-19 thing where he wasn't able to practice like a normal year would be. And he still came out and was amazing. And I just look at it and like you just said, if he had some time, the guy could have made some plays. And I really honestly and truly think if they fix the offensive line, that'll be something that will really contribute in this next season. And then you talk about Jamar Chase. If you can fix that line and give him elite weapons, that is going to I think people are going to be surprised by the jump that they have. But on behalf of Who Dey Nation, we have to thank you for the Orlando Brown trade. With the Rat Birds up north. We appreciate that. I thought that was a great trade for you guys on that side. I mean, it honestly was a steal. I know a lot of Ravens fans were upset about that one.
There are Ravens fans that think that they won that trade. It's like we got Orlando Brown and you gave us the second-round draft pick. You can have whatever we gave you. So it's just like, okay.
No, that's facts. That's facts. So you kind of talked about. We talked before the show about putting those elite weapons around a young quarterback. Obviously, you guys went from Alex Smith to Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes has become, the best quarterback in the league. I don't think anybody would really argue that. And you surrounded him with a lot of young talent at receivers. Obviously, you said that you wish that the Bengals would have gone for Penei Sewell. But obviously, if they're trying to do other things to build that lineup, adding a Jamar Chase and having these three dimensional receivers and Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. What do you think that would do for a young quarterback?
Oh, it's very important because, I mean, a quarterback will elevate his receivers and the receivers elevate the quarterback, just kind of vice versa. But if you have no receivers, you're just kind of stuck. I mean, look at Sam Darnold in New York. He had nothing, absolutely nothing. And I think that he's a good quarterback. He just kind of got stuck in the system that didn't give him a good offensive line, didn't give him any weapons. And it's just like they didn't do the right thing with the quarterback. You guys, I would say that the offensive line is the biggest concern right now, but you've given him, like you said, I mean, you got Joe Mixon's a very underrated running back, but like the weapons that you've given him. And I just think that it's just getting that line fixed, because I would say that my biggest concern is he's got the weapons, but you know, that scar going down the side of his knee is my biggest concern. It's just like, can the offensive line give him enough time to find those weapons? And if they can, he's going to be successful.
Definitely. So another thing, because a lot of Bengals fans, believe it or not, I have a buddy of mine, Zim. We have this podcast we do that's called the Orange is the New Black podcast. We talk all the time about the Chiefs are the bar. Like, you guys are the bar for the AFC. When it comes to it, you know, obviously we're in the AFC North. That's a tough division. But when we're looking and comparing to who we should try to model ourselves after, who we should try to, you know, obviously we're a far away from competing with you guys, you know, with you guys going to the Super Bowl. But that's the team that you have to beat in the AFC. It's not really the Ravens. It's not really the Steelers. It's not really the Browns. And no disrespect to those teams, but everybody has to go through the Chiefs. Like, you got to have Pat Mahomes. You got to be able to put up 30, 40 points to compete with you guys. You can have the best defense and stuff like that. But when it comes to, you know, winning in the AFC, you got to go through Pat Mahomes and you got to go out to Arrowhead and play in front of that crowd. So from your standpoint, it seemed that initially early on, you guys kind of loaded up on offense and didn't really do, you know, too much to the defense. Then like the next season, you guys kind of brought in some edge rushers. So my question to you is, the Bengals are kind of in a similar point of their lives where they're like, they have some good players on defense, but they're not really focused on defense. They're realizing like the league is moving towards loading up on offense. So as a balance, how do you balance that defense and offense? Is it that defense just doesn't matter anymore because it's a passing league? Or is it that you got to get the right positions on defense?
Defense definitely matters. You know, I've witnessed the past three years just covering the team, and I would go as far to say that 2018 Chiefs team might have been the most explosive. I mean, they had Kareem Hunt at the time, and it was just all offense. That's when Pat threw for 50 and 5,000, and it was everything was just like 30, 40, 50. They were just putting up so many points, but the defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. I mean, it was really what kind of held this team back. And I don't think the defense is necessarily as important as it was last like in the past, because the offenses have just gotten so much better. But I mean, you could argue that the only reason the Chiefs were able to win that Super Bowl is going down in the late stretches of the fourth quarter, the defense stepped up and made stops. And especially when the offense wasn't producing in the Super Bowl, they needed something to do the job for them while they needed to catch up. So it's just kind of like, I think defense is really important, but it's not as important as it used to be. But with that being said, you still got to have a good defense to win a championship.
Nah, that's facts. So not to hate on the Browns or anything, but I just really want to know.
I'll hate on the Browns with you. I think they're overhyped.
That's what I want to ask you. So there's a lot of Browns fans, and you know, they're really excited off of what happened last season. Yeah. But to me, the way that I saw it is this. You know, they have a talented team, but at the end of the day, like I reiterated from the beginning, you got to go through Pat Mahomes. You got to be able to score with those guys. I feel like they weren't able to do that at the beginning of that game. And the only thing that opened the window for them, in my opinion, was once Pat Mahomes went out of the game. And so, like, in your opinion, do you think that game would have been as close if Pat Mahomes plays the entire game? Or, you know, is it just a blowout with Pat Mahomes? Obviously, it's hypothetical, but I think there's a clear difference between Pat Mahomes being in the game and Chad Henne.
If Patrick Mahomes is still in that divisional game, we would have won by 2 touchdowns, because we were up by like, I think it was 20-3 at one point.
20-3 at one point. I remember.
Yeah.
That.
I mean, it was like we were scoring on every single drive. And if Pat didn't go out, I mean, he's not going to slow down. The Chiefs average in the playoffs under Patrick Mahomes like 33.5 points, which is just absurd. So obviously they weren't going to slow down anytime soon. But my argument for Browns fans, like I get it, you revamp your defense and you got all those pieces in the draft, but you let Chad Henne run all over. I mean, you let Chad Henne will a Chiefs team that was kind of morally defeated to victory. Like you could get better, and I understand that, but like you make a good point. Like you might have a good team, but you got to come through Arrowhead. You got to play Patrick Mahomes. You got to play this team, and I just think that there's only so much you can do. They're a good team, just like the Buffalo Bills were a good team. They couldn't get the job done. It's just there's a difference between being a great team and a good team.
Right, facts. No, I totally agree with you. I think the Browns have improved in the offseason. But to me, it just comes down to the quarterback. You know, Baker Mayfield versus Pat Mahomes. And to me, I don't think it's a competition. I don't think that Baker Mayfield can get in a shootout with Pat Mahomes and come out on top. It's too hard to do that. I mean, we're talking about the best quarterback in the league. And, you know, in that game, he didn't rise to the occasion. Like he had a good regular season, right? I still feel like he was kind of on what I call, and you could probably call it the Alex Smith, Andy Dalton diet, whatever you want to call it, where it's, you know, let's let our running backs and players around them carry the quarterback, but let's not have him throw for 40 or 50 times a game. When you're going against Pat Mahomes, that's what you're going to have to do. Like you can try to slow him down with your running back, but you guys have the Cheeto over there. You have Kelsey. Like you can't stop those guys. It's just, honestly, that's just what it is. But I guess one more thing that I want to ask you is, how do you think the Chiefs rebound this season? Like, it seems like it's almost you get bored with like the regular season because you guys just slice through so many people. So what do you think is like the benchmark for them this year coming back off of the Super Bowl loss?
I think they're very motivated. I think that the biggest thing that kind of gnawed at me in that Super Bowl is it just didn't look like the Chiefs team that we saw all year long. Like you know, Britt Reed, I don't know if you were aware of that situation. Yeah. He ended up getting into a car accident and injuring a child. And I don't know if that had anything to do with Andy Reid's preparation or game plan, but like there were times during that Super Bowl, it's like, Andy, what are you doing? Like, why did you call a timeout and let Tom Brady march down the field with like a minute to go in the second quarter? It's just like the dumb decisions that he made and the coaching, it didn't look like they adjusted to anything. And that's, I think, why it just was so frustrating. It's because the team just kind of rolled over and died. Besides Pat, who ran for like 500 yards just scrambling around, the team just gave up. And it kind of was a little bit frustrating. But from what I've kind of seen on Twitter and around the media, this team is basically like the core leaders of it. They took a little bit of an off season, but they've been like very motivated and determined. I know they're already at training camp, which I'll be going up there in a few days. But I think they're ready. And I honestly think that this is probably going to be the best Chiefs team we've ever seen. Because with the offensive line being as good as I think it's going to be, and Pat and having all those weapons, and the defense hopefully gets better. You know, Frank Clark, we don't know really what he's going to do, but I think this offense is going to be lethal.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be scary. I mean, the Chiefs were already scary. Now they get an offensive line in the mix. Truly appreciate that. Obviously, we play you guys week 17. I feel like it's way too early now to kind of do a preview. So hopefully we can get you back on here during the season.
And hey, if you want to come on my channel, we can kind of do both things.
Yeah, sounds good, bro. Definitely. We'll get that linked up. But before you get out of here, please let the people know once again where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate having me on. As always, this was really fun. You guys can find me on Twitter. That's Casey Sports Report. Instagram at Casey_Sports Report. And then just YouTube at Casey Sports Report.
Prax, appreciate that. Appreciate that again, Michael, for coming on.
No
problem. My Bengals fans watching, as usual, I end this with a who day all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.